I want to say before we get started, I appreciate Rosette trying to come at me on Twitter about my Spotify end of the year playlist. I do have 3 children. Everybody, welcome into Don't Call This Podcast Year in Review. I'm your host, Ryan McLaughlin. With I'm okay. Good. My camera's covering up the patch a little bit. This is the conclusion to our Year in Review series we've been doing. If you've been keeping up what's been going on here, our other podcasts in terms of politics as usual, and on last week's episode, we've been running our year recaps. Where in those shows they counted down their top 10 albums of the year and and then shows of the year. Here we're not doing the top 10 because
there's no top.
It's just chaos. It's pure embodied chaos. So we are going to talk about the year that was with no real rhyme or reason, right? Like I don't have a list in front of me in terms of what we want to cover. But I do know we want to highlight kind of some of the big events that happened this year, as well as talk about what's happening here in 2 weeks, because we have not made it out the woods yet. So let's go around our table, introduce everybody, see how everybody's doing. Ron, what's happening with you with the glasses? I see you with the glasses.
I am good. Yeah, I do wear glasses sometimes. So yeah, what's up? I'm Ron. The hardest working man in podcasting. I've been on 4 nights straight, but I do it for the people though. It's for you.
Oh my goodness.
It's for you, the people.
Courtney?
I'm drunk. I've been taking shots since 5 o'clock because I'm on holiday now. So if you see me eating, if you see me eating, mind your business.
Yes, I'm also eating chips because I'm drinking eggnog and rum. I'm doing something very dangerous because I haven't eaten since breakfast. All I've had today are eggs and grits.
Same.
So if I start slurring a little bit, don't judge. Don't judge.
Mind your business.
And somebody who's never on Don't Call This a Podcast with us anymore. This used to be the ride or die. It was me and D, and then it was me, D, and Courtney because Ron abandoned us. Now D's been missing. D, what's happening?
I have never abandoned you. I just allowed space for the political savants in our group to take care of it.
D also says she cares about her mental health. So
there you go.
That's basically what it was.
Step to the side, let y'all know. I know my strength. Politics ain't it.
Yeah. All right, so we know the big stuff that happened this year in terms of the presidential election, the presidential race, COVID-19. That's why we're all doing this virtually instead of in a barbershop in Birmingham like we usually would do. But hey, I mean, it is what it is. So let's talk a little bit about what kind of led to where we are now in terms of our presidential election. During the beginning of the year, we had the conclusion of the primaries as a whole swath of people dropped out before we even got to the Iowa caucus. Our 4 ended up being Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Mike Bloomberg, who nobody asked for, and Bernie Sanders. As we kind of got through the first few primaries and we got into Super Tuesday, eventually Biden ran away with it after South Carolina. Please do not forget who voted in South Carolina and all the southern states. I just want to kind of reiterate that. Before we got into the swing, thank you, Ron. Thank you if it wasn't obvious. Before we got into the swing of things, when the pandemic really hit. So, again, I don't have rhyme or reason to what we're doing today. So I do want to ask you this, Ron. As we are now on month 9, closing in on month 10 of COVID, what do you see as sort of the big significant non-COVID events of the year?
The first thing, because I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, because this year both went by quickly, they're not fast enough at the same time. Like so much happened, but it's kind of blurry, like because we've been under isolation the entire time. But my biggest event, well, I won't say biggest because it's not a good thing that happened, but one of the most significant things of 2020, and it's such a tragic thing, is when I think about 2020, in addition to COVID and getting Donald Trump out of here, I'm also going to think about the passing of Chadwick Boseman because nobody saw that coming, and I think if you just
that's why I was laughing. Not a Chadwick Boseman, but
yeah. So just what he meant for like the culture and just seemed like a true star in the making. I mean, because he was big already, but he wasn't as big as he was going to be. So seeing someone like that pass away, untimely death, like that's probably the thing that we'll take away from 2020. We'll be like, man, he really passed away in 2020.
Yeah, a lot of out of nowhere celebrity deaths, right?
I was going to say Kobe Bryant too.
Kobe Bryant.
That was at the beginning of the
See,
year.
oh my God. See, that doesn't even
I was
feel
gonna say
like
Kobe was this year.
Yeah, because that was the moment, because it was pre-COVID, so a lot of people, a lot of the year started a little bit before that. I remember it's like one of those things where you remember where you were when you found out the news. And I remember seeing the headline like on Twitter, as you find out everything on Twitter nowadays. And I was like, is there a different Kobe Bryant? Like, that was like my first thought.
Mhm.
I was like, is there another Kobe Bryant that I didn't know about? And then I remember telling Michael, and I'm like, it's TMZ official, and it's like all these other things official. And it was like the denial was so, it's just, it seems so inconceivable where he's like, it's got to be fake. It's got to be fake. It has to be. And then it's like, as you watch more news reports pull in, it's just like, it was so heartbreaking because it wasn't just Kobe, it was his daughter, Gianna, too. It's just tragic. There's like, tragic isn't even the word for it, for that kind of situation. We're actually even almost coming up a year on it. So
that's the crazy part. Yeah. I think there's so much with this year, and I think one of the things that defines it for me and Dee, I want to ask you about this. The kind of the new civil rights uprising, right? Like we saw the perfect catalyst for people to really march into the streets. For one, everybody was in their house for 2 months, but then you had what happened to George Floyd, what happened to Breonna Taylor, what happened to Ahmaud Arbery, all be on camera, right? All except for Breonna Taylor be on camera. And you just kind of saw this boiling over point, or this sort of this breaking of tension that had been there for a long time. Dee, as all this was going on this summer, you and I are both parents. We're the two parents of the podcast. How did you feel sort of reacting to these things? How did you feel seeing these protests, knowing that people were kind of, trying to speak truth to power, march in the streets and actually make change? How did that make you feel?
I can't really, to be honest, it wasn't 2020 that did it. What really, like, the one that has set me off the most, and I can't say one is more heartbreaking than another one, but Trayvon really just like still blows my mind still, because he was a child, and like it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, something's gonna happen. Like, there's no way he's gonna get away with it. There's no way. And I remember talking to my mom about it because she happened to be at my house the night of the verdict. And I'm like, oh, I'm not worried about it. I mean, like, they gotta find him guilty. And when they didn't, I was just kind of sitting at the table stunned. And nobody knew what to say. My mom didn't know what to say. And then this year, EJ. And it was just like, what is happening? And just to imagine a child trying to explain, hey, I'm different. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm just different. I don't understand what's happening. I don't know. And them to ignore that is just, it's mind boggling. And like Breonna, I don't have the words for Breonna at all. I don't know how it can be more heinous or worse or anything. And I know I'm flirting with danger by saying how can it be worse, but like, you don't get worse than Breonna, because your home is supposed to be where you're safe, right? Like, you're supposed to be okay. You're supposed to be in your house. If nothing else, our parents used to tell us come in the house when the street light came on because you'd be safe. Like, that was the cue. And then on top of that, I'm not sure if y'all saw the video of the woman in Chicago who they had a no-knock warrant and she's standing there naked and they just let her stand, and then they cuffed her while she's naked in Chicago. And I'm like, she's completely nude. What is she going to do? Why are you handcuffing her? And why don't y'all have the decency to let the woman put on some clothes? Like, she's in her house, just grab her something to put on. So as far as it goes to the kids part of it, it's one of those situations where for me it's tricky because I don't really know what to teach them, like, do we teach them what our parents taught us, which is be respectful, keep your hands on the dash, don't talk back to the police officers, be submissive in a way, or do you just teach them to stand up for themselves and not let these things happen to you? Because it seems like either way, it's at the discretion of the officer, and you just hope you get a good one. Hopefully.
I've had that conversation with my wife and family members over the last couple of months, because people will tell you, or at least I'm not anymore, but I used to be pretty hot-headed. And it used to take a lot for me to still sit there and kind of keep my hands on wheel, keep my mouth shut, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's really interesting as we kind of see these things develop, as we sort of see, I don't want to say like the sea of change, but I want to say like the reactions change, right? There were people who, because they were in their homes, could no longer avoid this conversation. And, Courtney makes fun of the people with the black square on Instagram all the time because that shit was performative. But I think it's important to point out that there were a lot of people this year who had to confront that for the first time. And although it shouldn't take those kind of tragedies for it to happen, I'm glad that kind of stuff did make them confront it, because there were no sports at the time. There was nothing to take your brain away from what was happening. You were just watching protests for days on end on the news, be covered 24/7. The stories of why the protests were happening be covered 24/7. And I think that really drilled in some people's brains. Some people forgot about it. We can't expect them, if they forgot about it, we can't expect them to be part of the journey anyway. But I think it really hit home for a lot of people. And that's when I think that's when you start to see things change a little bit. Because I'm not just talking about white folks. I'm talking about Black people who maybe have been insulated from the idea, right? Who have maybe not realized how crazy this shit is or how crazy it can be. And that to me was a major turning point. So Ron, Courtney, I don't know if y'all want to add anything to those.
You go first, Ryan.
So yeah, I was going to say, I never thought, at least in my lifetime, we would see a point where like these conversations are out in the forefront, because Ryan, you and I are, believe it or not, viewers, sorry, I had to throw that out there. You and I are close to the same age. I'm actually a year older than Ryan. So sorry, I got it. So at least in our lifetime, we've been hearing the phrase post-racial, like, oh, I voted for Obama twice. Like, so, but you and I know as Black men,
for a third time.
Like,
voted for a third
time. Yeah. So you and I both know that, like we still felt these things. D, you still felt these things. So we never thought these microaggressions that, morph into these larger issues that we have to deal with on a daily basis would be in the forefront of the conversation. And yeah, like I said on the previous podcast, sure, it's performative that, Nike and all these corporations are saying Black Lives Matter. But if I would have told you 10 years ago that Nike would release a statement saying Black Lives Matter, would you believe me? No, you wouldn't have. So it's crazy that these things are in the forefront of conversation. And sure, it's lost some steam, but it's still there. Like, people are still saying Black Lives Matter. You still see it on the shirt. Like, I'm still seeing it on the mask. Like, it's still in the forefront of people's minds. And I think that's very important, because I think people are who don't even subscribe to like race issues in America, who believe they're like a non-factor, they're having to start to confront this. Workplaces are starting to do like racial sensitivity training, like, which I think are mostly BS, but hey, at least they're trying.
Yeah.
You're starting to see more discussions about diversity. Like, these things are out in the forefront, and that's how it starts. So there's still plenty of work to be done. There's still going to be plenty of work for generations to come, but it's good to see that this stuff is at least out in the open and we can talk about it now.
Go ahead, Courtney. I know you have something.
Yeah.
Courtney.
You want to add that first, and then I can go on if it was kind of relevant to what he was saying.
My only thing was going to add to the whole diversity and inclusion and all of these trainings, because they're like, there's still, no matter what, when you have diversity and racial sensitivity training, there's still a fear of retaliation. There is still a fear of retaliation. So going into it, there's not an honesty that needs to be there. Now, the good thing is that there are questions that are asked that people don't answer honestly on the paper, but they know internally what they feel. So hopefully, if nothing else, it makes them confront themselves. But most of the time, that's not enough to make them do anything about it, right? So if the moderator of the class says, oh, okay, who in here thinks that Black people aren't as smart as white people? There's somebody that's going to believe it. You think they're going to raise their hand? No. Are they going to write it down on a piece of paper where it's supposedly anonymous? No. But they feel it and they know it, but they have no problem with it because they just believe that's how it is. So until like there is some kind of way where we can confront it head on for real and just make people be 100% open and honest, is kind of a thing you do to check off a list for to be hired. And it really is.
Mm-hmm.
Just I guess from my perspective, I do make fun of the Black Square people because they deserve to be made fun of. They do. But I do think it was a good thing, kind of similar to what Ron said, and that especially the corporations and people were pressured in a way, which like you should have been doing it genuinely, but the fact that it was so brought to the forefront that it would have been bad for someone not to acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like accepting crumbs, and in a way it's accepting crumbs, but I think it's a step, and that people were forced to acknowledge it. You know what I mean? It may have been bullshit, but I think it's a step in the way that people couldn't ignore it. You couldn't go out and act like things are fine. You couldn't watch a game and think things were fine. You couldn't go to a movie. And I think, especially, you know, these things have been happening, but with the videos being shown, and I do want to take a second to say, like, especially as a white person, like, you need to acknowledge that and just don't post racial violence on the timeline. Like, I think what a lot of people's goals are, like, to show it to other white people so they know, but it shouldn't take torture porn for people to acknowledge it, and the fact that you might be traumatizing and triggering people by sharing those. So I really want to implore people to not share those. Like, there's ways to just have these discussions without sharing something that's traumatizing. I don't know if that was wrong for me to say, but I've seen enough people say it for I feel right in saying it. But I think that needs to be addressed. And where I think more and more people are, like I said, I'm very pro bullying people who have horrible opinions. People are getting bullied more and more online, because I do think with like the Trump era, like these things have like always existed, but people are feeling more bold. And I think people are becoming more bold and confronting it. And I really don't know what this would have looked like if the pandemic didn't take place.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I really think it was because, one, people were more available to go protest, I guess. And two, you couldn't ignore it. You couldn't ignore it. And the thing, you know what the really sad thing just is like really heartbreaking and just infuriating about Breonna Taylor is that it happened in February and it didn't get the attention. And so what happened to George Floyd happened. And I'm like, yeah, one, it's on video. I think the fact that she's a woman, a Black woman, plays into that. And I really don't think that needs to be ignored. Mm-hmm. But there's also in a way where people are just horrible and love attention. And that Breonna Taylor became a meme.
Yeah.
And it was infuriating. And it gets more attention, but then we fall backwards when people think it's fucking funny to say, yeah, but the murder of Breonna Taylor is just like, no, like this was a grown woman, like a real human being who was asleep, minding her business.
An EMT.
Minding her business. And then you're just shot dead. Just imagine you're just asleep. And it wasn't just that, just like the way that Louisville has handled it after that is what I think makes it so sickening to me. And one, finding ways to try to blame her, going after her ex-boyfriend, trying to tie her to drug dealers. So I think it has shown people, I guess, whose heads were in the sand. Like, not only are people being murdered just for existing, but the links that police departments are going to kind of be disgusting and gross and horrible. And all of you are going to hell. I want to watch you burn. That's all I want. God, please. That's all I want. If I could only ever ask for one thing, I just want to watch them burn. That's it.
I'm laughing at AJ's comments.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how AJ has
it's not you, Courtney.
Okay, you're good. You're good.
Background for like 6-7 months now.
It's better than the closet. It's better than the closet.
It's better than the closet. Here.
I think, and especially if you know what happened, happened with Chicago. Like, Chicago is known for being very heinous and hiding crimes and such. So I think not only were people being forced to acknowledge there's a little bit of an echo, but they forced to acknowledge the fact that Black people are being murdered just for existing, but also what police departments are doing to cover it up. So I think, and I saw a lot of people on my end on my Facebook that were actually being forced to acknowledge it. And look into it, just like, I'm just going to listen to the Fox News narrative. Like, no, it's in your face. So I hate that it's taken more and more people dying for that to happen, and people dying in a pandemic. It shouldn't happen, but I don't like accepting crumbs. I don't. But I I do make fun of the black square energy. Yes, people are forced to acknowledge it, but you shouldn't be forced to acknowledge it just because, like, oh, you know. And people deleted the squares because it didn't fit with their aesthetic. So I don't like accepting crumbs. We're at the point it's 2020. People can educate themselves. Like we have all the knowledge. I think just as a white person, you need to do the research yourself. And you need to.
The squares were a cool thing to do, so they did it, and it's sad.
And that's what it is. It's like because it makes you look bad to not do it. And like in a way, I'm glad you look bad for not doing it because it's you deserve. But a lot of people were fine and didn't do anything after the fact. So
yeah, I want to make the point too, and I'll just kind of share this as one last thing, so we don't have to kind of continue to go down this route. But I highly recommend anybody that is interested in this subject matter, because one of y'all brought up a good point where you talked about, I think it was D, talked about the racial sensitivity training and how you can do that until you're blue in the face, but some people aren't going to get it. There's a really, really good podcast series called Seeing White. It is by oh God, I got to think of the name. I will put the link in the chat, and I'll put the link in the description of this episode if you check out tomorrow, and I'll make sure I tweet it from the timeline. But it's a really good series that talks about just sort of the history of race in America, sort of the history of race altogether across the world. But then it also starts dialing in to its impacts to today, right? So when we talk about systemic racism, when we talk about critical race theory, all of this stuff, it kind of gives you a nice introduction to what it is. And there's a point, the reason I brought that up, there's a point in one of the last 2 episodes of the series where they are chronicling sort of the data for progress, sort of racial, I can't think of the name of it, the racial class. But basically within that class, there's a breakdown they do where they talk about affirmative action, right? And they ask the people in the beginning, how do you define affirmative action? And, oh, well, it's a system that provides, provides a leg up on the basis of race, right? That's how it's defined. So then she goes back through history, all the way back to 1619, to talk about everything from indentured servants who weren't African receiving, 50 bushels of corn and a musket and land acreage and all of that, and just kind of going down the timeline and showing that affirmative action existed before it was legislated in the 1960s and 70s. It existed way back in 1619. And so it's having those conversations and, letting people kind of see and understand that, hey, this is something that is, when we talk about systemic racism, it's real, right? Like, this is not, people aren't making this up. This isn't a new academic term. It's real. And we can go back and document it, but you have to want to do the work and unpack you have to do the labor of unpacking what all of this stuff means. So, all right, so we'll move forward. Another big event. Oh no, I'm sorry, Courtney. Did you have
I do just want to hop onto what Melanie said. Like, I love you, Mom. And there's some discussions. I think we need to take a step away from the idea that people are just racist just because they're going to be racist. I think we do need to start framing it as an active choice. You choose to be racist. You choose to be racist. So I think we need to start holding people accountable. It doesn't matter. Like, at point, you're raised how you're raised, but when you become an adult, you make choices. And if you choose to be racist, you need to be held accountable. I don't care how you're raised. We're in 2020. There's way too much information nowadays. There's a lot of people that have grown and have changed and have learned and looked back. But some people choose to not do that. So I agree with Melanie that at point you need to be held accountable that you're a piece of shit. So by choice.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's move forward to the next big event that happened this year. I would define it as the VP sweepstakes being over and done with. Ron and I spent a lot of weeks during the summertime trying to figure out who it was be.
And I'm the one that told you casually.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Not to cut you in, but I was like, oh wait, and it was already announced, Ron. And he was like, oh, that was the whole first part of this podcast.
Yeah. I think that was the week that I was gone, right? Yeah, that Courtney.
That was the week you were out.
And he was like, oh, we're gonna figure out who's gonna be the VP. I was like, oh, it's Kamala. You didn't hear?
Yeah. Look, I had a rough day at work and I had to take a nap. And I woke up right before the show. And Court told me, I was like, huh? Well, I guess I could scratch that off.
Anyway, it just shows you just how what chaos that was.
Mhm.
Yes. So we spent a good 2-3 weeks trying to figure out who we thought it would be. Ron and I were Tammy Duckworth stands in terms of thinking that it was the perfect pick. But we were happy that it ended up being Kamala. She gave an amazing speech at the DNC. But above all of that, it was a historic moment. Not only was she, I think, officially the third woman on a major party ticket nominated for the VP, but she was the first African American and first Indian American woman to also hold that title. And as we'll cover here shortly, she actually won, which none of the other two did. So let's talk a little about Kamala and what she brought to this ticket. Ron, we'll start with you. When you first heard the announcement, waking up from your nap, being undercut by Courtney 5 minutes before the podcast was supposed to begin, how did you feel? What did that make you feel?
See, so to recap what happened, I think it was Politico who put it out, and they instantly removed the tweet. They're like, okay, this doesn't exist. But at that point, we were like, we know, man. So then they were still putting out names just to get fillers. Like, we knew at this point it was going to be a black woman. So when it was announced it was Kamala, and once again, like going into like the presidential sweepstakes, like she was like at the midpoint of my list, but still, like, you have to take a step back and say, like, hey, this is still a pretty significant moment, because you have a woman of color, specifically, an Asian American and an African American woman of both cultures being represented here. And on top of that, like, she's also incredibly great at her job. Like, she's really good at her job. So it's a really historic moment to see her, and then you see just the pictures of little girls looking at the TV, looking at Kamala, like same feeling I had when I saw Barack on screen. So like I said, I can't know what they were feeling in that moment, but it had to be something like that. But yeah, it's just amazing to see that. It sucks that progress has to be incremental, but when these things happen, when these milestones happen, like, they're still significant nonetheless.
Yeah. And I made the point, or I think I tweeted out during the acceptance speech after the election was over with, that I was sitting there and I had both my daughters on my lap. My son was just running around playing, but I had both my daughters on my lap, and neither one of them were old enough to understand the significance of the moment. But my daughter, who was very hyperactive, who was very all over the place, who never really sat still and just watched Kamala give a speech. And I think that really meant a lot to me, right? And I know a lot of people were upset at the pick. They're upset at Biden, being the nominee because they want somebody that's significantly more progressive. But I want to make the point that as we get to the subject matter later on the podcast, one of the three senators, the actual senator who wrote the bill about the $2,000 a month, which progressive were pushing for, is Kamala Harris. So, I want to make the point that she did have a progressive record in the Senate, and that if we're grading on the curve of what actually is American politics, she was as progressive as you were going to get out that Senate. So, no, she's not Nina Turner. No, she is not Bernie Sanders. No, she is not Ayanna Pressley or Rashida Tlaib or AOC. But she is a phenomenal figure, an important figure. And I'm very happy that pick and decision were made. So, D, I'm gonna hand it to you here. I'll let you pick up and give your thoughts on Kamala's nod.
I mean, y'all already know how I feel about it. It's like, I remember this very distinctly. We were on Twitter once, and we were talking about representation and how brown Barbie dolls were important back in the day. And a man, as usual, because men always got something to say, was like, well, I don't understand it. What's the point? I mean, representation. I'm like, see, the reason you don't understand it is because although you may not have had blatant a male action figure, you still had some form of representation. You had G.I. Joe, right? These are green. You had a little green men who could be anything. You had Panthro, and everybody know Panthro was black. Like, y'all know this, right? We know. So
Panthro and Piccolo are black.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. But when I was a child, I had and calm down, okay? Because this y'all might not get some of these, but I had Rainbow Bright. Melody. I had, Cabbage Patch dolls, and we had these things, but we didn't have black girls. And I remember there was like this Kenya doll that came out, and it was like, oh my gosh, there is a black doll, and she had beads, and you could straighten her hair, you could curl her hair. It was magnificent. So seeing that, it's like it shows, hey, black girls exist. You act like we don't, but we're here. Now seeing this black woman who's going to be in, well, she won't be in the White House, but you know what I mean. She'll be at, where does it, where they live? Where's the vice president live? One circle.
Yeah.
Wherever she lives, she's gonna be there. And it's just like, it's Kamala, who's a woman, who's a minority, who's Black, who went to a HBCU, who pledged a sorority, all of a Black sorority, may I add, all of these things that people tell you don't matter, don't mean anything. Well, you know, your HBCU is really not going to count. It's the same. They're not going to look at you like they look at somebody else, but they do. And she is proof that if you got what you need, if you got what it takes, if you've got the brain power, if you study, if you work hard, as people say all the time, you can get where you need to go. Now, that's not saying that there aren't still hurdles, because there are. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. You always need connections. You need whatever else. But showing people that you take away that whole don't go to a HBCU because you can't be anything, she killed it easily. Mm-hmm. If nothing else, she kills that. And to me, that's important, because I graduated from Auburn, but I need people to understand that school is hard, right? Like, college is tough. And for you to take away from people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into whatever else because you don't like the name of their university is crap. It's just shitty. Like, there's no other way to put it. It's shitty and it's awful. And the fact that she's now the second in command, I mean, what can you say about that, right? And of course, you know, I put on for my women folks, so yay.
And may I add, and the finest person we've ever.
Sorry. Oh, here we go, Ron.
Can we just get him out of here?
Sorry.
Anyway,
shout out to the AKAs who were being extremely extra, but deservedly so. Deservedly extra.
I just want to say with the AKAs, if you had like a couple, like my timeline was pink and green for days.
You gotta let them have it though.
I was happy. I was so happy though. Like, I was gonna say, like, the amount of joy coming out, and of course, like, I'm not obviously I'm not a woman of color, but just even as a woman, just to have a woman as a vice president, especially growing up, like, because there are still people that believe women should not be in power at all. Like, I remember my mom, like, Mom, which teacher was it? I'm sure you'll know the name. When I put that I wanted to be president, and the teacher's like, "Oh, sweetheart, girls can't be president," and my mom went out and, like, in the Jesus way, cussed out the teacher. But like, we still have that around. So to have, I got emotional. Like, of course, like, obviously you're not going to be able to have like a candidate that like crosses everything off. And of course we don't want crumbs, but I think you're remiss and you're privileged to take away but the representation this is, because I got emotional seeing her there. And I'm just like, and the fact that she's also so excellent too. Like, that speech was just pure excellency. I think to dismiss what that means, and also it's a step forward, but at the same time, now there's no Black women in the Senate. Now that she's stepping out, so it's just like there's still progress to be made, because what is she, the second or third ever Black woman in the Senate?
I think she's the third. I could be wrong. I think it's third.
See, my mom remembers her face because she wants to punch it, but she can't remember the name. But like, I never seen my mom so mad in my life when I told her that. But yeah, and not only that, it's like she's Asian, but she's South Asian, which there's a lot of colorism. I'm not Asian, so I'm going to speak on a lot of it. But it's really just powerful just to see just that kind of representation. And I think for anyone to dismiss that, it just needs to be quiet, because you don't just even hearing what Dee talks about, it just. As a woman, I'm speechless just thinking about how this is like what it meant to me, and you know, for our daughters and my niece and everything else. Just it's a glass ceiling that's broken. Honestly, of course, it's still going to be a battle, and I think I do also love the fact that it's a woman of color that was the first, because it's usually always just like a white woman that had like this stuff everywhere. But the fact that it was, you know, an Asian Black woman, you know, who came, you know, went to an HBCU, and it just is like, of course, you know, you have connections, but it's not in the same traditional way as like you'd say like Hillary Clinton. You know, it means something. I think that a first is not like I guess I don't like using the word traditional, but what you would have thought, you know what I mean? But and I think she's more, I think she's almost overqualified for the position, quite honestly. So
yeah. Yeah, for certain. I also want to say that I totally understand AKAs because I will be super ignorant if Reverend Warnock wins his race, since that's a whole other conversation.
You gotta let them have it. Like you just gotta let the
you
AK
gotta let 'em have it.
have
Look,
it.
let
It was
'em have it.
necessary.
Hey,
Mhm.
they showed up in full force. Like
They did.
from the
They
minute that
did.
the minute that she was announced, they had white people confused with all these donations of
Can I
$19.08.
talk about my funniest tweet? The funniest tweet I've seen all year. Somebody said if one AKA line votes in this election, then Joe Biden will win because you.
It's true. It's so true.
Oh god.
Oh my
I have no
god.
comments on the matter. I am not
good.
Greek.
That's a good one. That is a good one. Shit. Damn, that's good. Okay. Anyway, moving forward. Jesus Christ. Yeah, moving forward. All right. So
It's the visual.
It's just all of them one by one, ace all the way to tail. All 208 of them, just
Like, where did they come from?
oh my god.
I just like hear movie style music. It's just like where like the Trump supporters feel comfortable, and then it's like, what's that? And then just
Dun, 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 dun.
I need someone to like make that a thing so I can like it could come to fruition, please.
All right. So moving on to the next event. This is more of a downer. I apologize. But the next significant event that I've got down here is the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. RBG died sometime in October of this year, which seems like it was forever ago, opening the door for Donald Trump and Republican senators to jam rush an unqualified nominee into her seat. That nominee ended up being Amy Coney Barrett, who is the definition of
It's like
white women affirmative action. Like white women affirmative action.
I just like I don't think it's the opposite, but I like in a way it's like almost like a 180 from what RBG represented to a lot of people, and it's just like the fact that they put a woman there to shut people up about it. It's just insulting.
I'm sorry. D number 1 Observatory Circle is the address. Number 1 Observatory Circle.
Number 1 Observatory Circle. Yeah, stay away from that now. Don't go try to find her. It infuriates me.
No promises.
Oh my God, right. Get him out of here again, please. Go. He needs to go.
I'm not sure if y'all saw there was a quote that she made about her children, and she talked about their qualities and like how one of them's really smart and one of them's really this and one of them's really that. And then when it came to her Black children, it was like either their physicality or their prowess to athleticism. And it just made me so angry because I'm like, these things may be true, right? They may be, but you've got to be cognizant of that type of thing because you have to think about what your children are going to hear above all, right? Ryan, you understand. Courtney, Ryan and Courtney, y'all got siblings, right? So if one of my children is brilliant and one of them is very athletic, I have to be careful when I describe them because I don't want either of them to think that having neither or having more of one of those qualities makes them better or worse than the other one, right? She needs to get that, especially since she has been given the privilege of taking care of Black children, right? It reminds me also of that other lady. I don't even remember who she was. That was like she's explained to her Black son that he's more likely to get pulled over by police and it's just a thing that he has to live with. And I'm like, bitch, what? Like, what? Why are you teaching him this? That makes no sense. And it makes me like, it almost makes me feel like if you adopt a Black child, you need to go through some kind of training. Like you need to go through a course, a lesson, and I'm not
like
even
a
talking
continuous course. Like after you've adopted the child, like after, like you shouldn't be able to adopt a child from any other race or culture without having to do that kind of training. Continuous. Sorry, not to cut you in, but like, this is like a thing. As a social worker for me,
it's true. Yeah, those things are important, and not only are they important because of what it is what they'll have to have and what they'll have to deal with as a person, but like it's important for them for their identity, right? Like you want to know who you are. You want to know who your people are. There may be certain things you relate to and you can't quite figure out, well, why am I drawn to this? And that type of stuff will help you. It may not make sense to some people, but I swear it matters who your family is, who your people are, where you're from. That kind of stuff molds you in a way. And even if you're taken out of it, it's still a part of you. And for you to try to erase that part of them or not nurture that part of them, or even if you do talk about their athleticism, make it in a way that's them and not because, oh, you know, Black people, that's just how they are. No, this is how you are because you as a person are this way, not because of your melanin or whatever else. It just like, I don't really want to rant. I'm sorry, but it just really, it just pisses me off so bad. 'Cause I'm like, lady, your children are more than athletes. They're more than that. And then, like I said, the one that was talking about her kid being more likely to be harassed by police officers and trying to make it seem like that was okay. Like, no, it's not okay. If you're going to tell him this, then make sure you say you're more likely to get pulled over or blah, blah, blah than your brother. And that's not okay. Like, say that. Make him know that it's going to happen. Make him know that it's not cool and that he shouldn't have to accept it or live with it, and teach your other son the same thing and tell him that it's not okay. It's not cool. This is your brother. Y'all grew up in the same house. There's no reason why y'all should be treated differently. And the reason y'all are is because of this. And that's not right. Right.
I mean,
one more thing real quick. Like if you adopt a Black son, please find him a good barber. Don't have him out here looking like Daniel Cameron. Please. Like that hairline is atrocious. But no, seriously. I say that to say this. D, you raise a good point. And
I'm sorry.
Simply adopting a child of color does not absolve you of your racism. So please not use that. And Amy Coney Barrett definitely did that to say like, hey, I'm not racist.
It's like
I'm not racist.
it's like one upping. Like I have Black neighbors. Like I adopted Black children.
Say, adopting, dating, kissing, being attracted to, teaching, loving.
Most of the time, being attracted to means they're fetishizing. But we're not going to get into that.
We're not going to get into that.
And even the fetishization of Black children too.
And adults too. And I'm the point I'm going to make. I promise this is my last one.
No.
It's bad, like it is. But my thing is, like, I had people that I honestly truly believe that they care about me, right? They like Keandra, they like me as a person, but they couldn't care less.
No.
But they couldn't care less about my people, right? So they care about me, but couldn't care less if Ryan or Ronnie were shot tomorrow. And that means you don't truly care about me, because if you did, you would care about how that affects me. So it's not just your children, it's your coworkers, it's your friends, it's your lovers, it's whoever. You need to care about more than just that one Black person or person of color.
Because most of the time, again, it's like that. I voted for Obama. I would have voted for him 3 times energy for me. And because a lot of times, just in my experience of people I know, it's like, well, they're an exception. You're not like the others type of thing. So that's the kind of person that Amy Coney Barrett is. Honestly. And again, the fact that they brought in a woman who was likely going to try to, remove Roe versus Wade. This is like so extra sickening to me. And someone who is very homophobic.
I'm sorry, Courtney. I want to interject. I want to say that also had not tried a fucking case. Like,
no,
had not
it's the bare minimum. The bare minimum. She has and the thing is, like, I had so many friends in law that were just like, and then people are like, oh, she didn't have to take notes. I'm like, that doesn't mean shit. I don't take notes. That doesn't mean like I'm like no better than someone that has a PhD in social work. Some people just don't have to take notes. That doesn't make you any better or worse. And to me, it just shows like the amount of white privilege that goes in. Like you could work so hard. Like we talked about how like Kamala Harris like did so much, but like Amy Coney Barrett just took like a big step over the amount of work someone does if they're Black, especially if you're a Black woman. It's just like She didn't do anything to, I'm sorry. And people are like, and they did it so that they could claim sexism. And they've been doing this, that if you question her credentials, you're sexist. I'm like, no, that's sexism because you're infantilizing women by saying that we can't be criticized. No, she hasn't earned it. She hasn't worked for it. While millennials, we're told that we have to like have 50 years of experience to have a position. And she's in the Supreme Court with the bare minimum.
I mean, it's to point out what you were saying there.
Too.
Like to point out what you were saying there. Oh, bless you. It's not even just the fact that that she was unqualified. It's that they don't understand basic issues of equality to the point that they think that the whole reason that people say you can't criticize, or that they think that people are saying you can't criticize women, right? They think that when people talk about equality, that they are saying that you can't criticize Black people or you can't criticize women, and that's not what people are saying. But they miss the point completely because they think
they go to extremes.
They because they don't understand. They just go, oh, checkmate, liberals. We put a woman on the court, so you can't question it now. It's like, no, bro, that's not the point. The point is she's unqualified. Like, she's unqualified. If this were a Black man, he'd be unqualified. If this were a white man, he'd be unqualified. And that's what matters. It's everything about that party and changing the rules whenever they can change the rules to shoehorn a white woman who has no business being on that court in immediately after a justice dies, right before, I think, she was sworn in 4 days before the election.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like, we still haven't had a stimulus check, but they had been dragging a stimulus check, and they bum rushed Amy Coney Barrett through.
We're gonna get this
after saying it shouldn't be done. By the way, don't forget
after saying it shouldn't be done. 4 years ago, they said, "Oh, that shouldn't happen." No, that's not. That's against the rules. Okay.
And there was a bigger gap. Sorry, like it was like the summer prior, or not even that. It was
February. It was February when Alito died. Alito died February of 16. And people, Graham and all of them were, well, that's not right to do. The American people should decide. And it's because they knew. I mean, they knew.
Make a controversial comment.
Go ahead.
Because I know I don't believe in not speaking ill of the dead. I'm sorry. I don't believe in it. I really don't. I think it's fair. I think it's fair to absolutely criticize people and their impact. I don't know if racism played a role, but I think ego played a role. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have just stepped down when Obama asked her to, this wouldn't be a problem.
Yes.
And I think this is a problem with white women especially. And I think the fact that he was a Black man played into that. I'm sorry. Allegedly, I don't know because I've never talked to her. But knowing her historically and knowing who she has been in the past, I think the fact that he was a Black man, I think the attitude was, I'm not going to let this Black man tell me what to do. And I think if we don't address that, like that, things have implications, right? They have long-term implications. And if we can't, and to me, that's sexism as well. And just something I don't believe in, that we don't speak ill of the dead, because then we can't learn from that, right? Like I didn't do it the day of. I wanted to say it the day of, but it wouldn't be a problem.
To let her breathe.
I wanted to let her breathe.
Breathe for no longer breathing.
Spirit breathe, or
the legacy breathe.
The legacy breathe. But I think it would be wrong to not criticize that. But it's going to have lifelong implications.
Sorry.
Where I thought you were gonna go, Courtney, is I thought you were gonna say is that Alito was looking up from hell, shaking his fist. But that's a whole other conversation.
Alito is burning. I'm sure he's looking up from hell, just so he's right there with John McCain. Oh, sorry.
All
right, the 2020 election happened shortly after that.
Also, that's Antonin Scalia, not Alito.
Not Alito. I'm sorry.
Scalia.
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry.
Wait a second.
Let's put the right racist white man in the grave.
I'm sorry.
Multiple.
Is that how big of a fine is that? Is that like a $50 fine? I just killed a man. Like, I'm pretty sure that's a $50 fine.
You know what? First offense, we'll strike it from the record. It's
okay. Cool. All right. Because I just killed a man. Holy shit. All right. I'm sorry. It's Scalia that's in hell. Okay. So anyway, moving forward, the 2020 election happened.
We're gonna go there.
Well, he's a zombie. All right. Anyway, the 2020 election happened shortly afterward, where Joe Biden, after about a week and a half, secured 306 electoral votes, enough to win the presidency, including flipping back states that Hillary Clinton had lost in terms of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and winning states that Republicans hadn't, that Democrats hadn't won some time, in Arizona and Georgia.
He got his ass cooked.
Got his ass cooked. Got cooked.
And it's what we have been saying almost all year that had to happen. It wasn't a full landslide. To me, it was still too close for comfort, but it was a big enough separation. And it's states like Georgia last weekend I just experienced Georgia's voting system, and I was like, how can you like that shit was like so like intense. You had to like fill out forms. They had to like shine a light on your ID and stuff. And it's just like I got extra question because my ID was fresh. So to me, I was like, that's extra hilarious to try to claim fraud because that shit was a bit too much. But just the fact that Georgia flipped was just for me.
And Arizona, for all the jokes we made about John McCain earlier, but like shit, man.
Yeah. I'm sure John McCain is smiling from hell. He's smiling from hell.
John McCain is looking up with a smile on his face, like just delighted that.
But Cindy,
just one last time. No, seriously, like there's a lot of respect for.
Shout out to people named Cindy.
And once Trump, spoke ill of her, like it was a wrap for that state. So shout out to Trump for being an
people's wives. So that's the thing. That's right. Like just because Ted Cruz is okay with you calling his wife ugly, like at that point, like you got to be careful about which one you step on.
I swear to God, I'll fight Ted Cruz.
I'm a very calm person, and I understand that we are adults and that things require peace, and that you have to be, calm, and you have to fight with your words. But let somebody call me ugly, and then my husband, I hugged up with him the next day.
You got to see me in the phone.
I'm sorry. Okay, if Michael did that, I would beat Michael's ass, and then I would go and beat the man who called me ugly's ass.
Ugly.
Ugly. Ugly.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you ugly. Look, ask my mom. I only fought men growing up. I
don't understand. I am somebody who's long past their hot-tempered, ill-tempered, just want to hit you about anything days. I'm long past that. However, I cannot in any sense understand somebody calling your wife, your girlfriend, your acquaintance, whoever, ugly in front of your face, in front of company, right? Like in front of everybody. I don't know how you do that and not invoke violence. Like,
Trump also said Trump took it a step further by saying that Ted Cruz's father may have possibly killed JFK, and he might be the Zodiac killer. Like, what?
Imagine he's speaking ill on your father. Just like
it's like, your dad wasn't shit either, by the way. So.
Even Meghan McCain, who's unbearable, like went like all claws out when her father's name and her mom's name revoked. I respected that because I'm just like, that's what you do when people speak ill of people you love. Like if Meghan McCain
about his brother. Like,
if Meghan McCain called me for saying her father's in hell, I'd respect that because I'm like, that's your dad. I get that. He's still in hell, but I get that. But no, it would be boxing, and that just shows like what little integrity Ted Cruz has. It's just like you'd be dead. As my husband, you'd be missing. I don't care what.
I mean,
you wouldn't be my husband.
I mean, I don't know what Heidi Cruz looks like. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
However, it doesn't matter. I don't call people who mind them or like are not in my business ugly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like okay.
What you look like you have to.
What I'm saying right? is like, what I'm saying is as an outside observer, it's one thing if like she actually is kind of like, but like also if she's fine, you know what I'm saying? Like then it's double hands, right? Like then it's double hands because it's like. You call her
coming from Trump, who
built like a sandwich. Like the man is built like a meatball sandwich.
Trump is built like a clothes hamper. Like
and Ted Cruz is very ugly too. And just for you to, it's just like,
what's his real name?
Eduardo.
Rafael. Is it? I thought it was
no,
Raphael.
it's Rafi. I think it's like Rafael Eduardo Cruz.
Rafael Eduardo. Okay. Okay, Ted.
No. It's whoa. It's
Rafael Edward.
No. Oh shit! It's Rafael Bienvenido Cruz y Diaz. So his name is Rafael Welcome Cruz and Day.
No, she's okay. I'm not gonna be rude. She's like not even like no, like she's not like Trump's like supermodel, right? But like she's not like that makes it worse. She's like average. I don't want to be rude, but like that's just he's just calling her ugly.
He's just calling her ugly. He's just calling her ugly.
I'm not.
because he
You're
can
not
get away with it.
The one thing you're not gonna do is call my spouse or girlfriend or whoever ugly and then have me making phone calls for you, because at the very least you got a black eye. Like at the very least I'm going Rand Paul's neighbor. Like
I'm going to jail. I'm going to jail.
At the least,
Absolutely.
if I do anything for you, you're gonna apologize and say that you were just being a jackass, and you know
And you're
were
gonna
just trying
apologize to my wife, like to her
But-
face.
But we
Yeah,
can't
I
just
was
do
wild,
all
man. My bad.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean it, man. I was just trying to get under your skin. My bad. You're gonna have to do something. You're gonna have to apologize in the same manner that you made the comment. I need to apologize the same way.
saying
And then-
It has
blows
to
my
match the
mind.
disrespect. It has to
There you
exceed the
go.
disrespect.
That's
actually, yeah.
exceed. There you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we ain't
It
just
just
gonna be
blows-
buddy because nah.
It's just the lack of integrity. It's just and that
But
just is
even
a lot of
if you
that's a
know
lot of
better.
Republicans. Honestly, there's
I've
no
never-
integrity.
Even if I know better, right? Like, because my husband is fine. Like, I know he's fine. I don't care what anybody else says about it. So if somebody calls my husband ugly, I'll be like, okay, you wildin'. I don't really care. But we're not gonna be cool until you acknowledge the fact that you wildin', right? Like, that's just how it's gonna go. You don't get to just insult him because you feel like it. That's not how
Right.
it works.
Mhm.
like I know again, my wife is not violent and I'm not ugly, but if you call me ugly, she might be violent. Like she might cut you, and that's just kind of the way it is, and that's what I expect. So I do not understand the desperate need for power that you're clinging to this man who is a nutcase who will take you down with him, as he has proven in
As
the
he's
week-
doing.
as he is doing. He is actively undermining everything that you're doing. And I just don't understand why you're dead. Because 2024, nobody's gonna give a shit about you, Ted. Like you're not gonna run again. Trump gonna run again if he's alive. But
Like, where do you fit in the history books?
Where do you fit in this?
Who studies Ted Cruz? Right?
because it's gonna be if Trump doesn't run, it's gonna be Josh Hawley or Tom Cotton or one of these other weirdos, and like nobody gives a shit about you, Raphael. Like you
You
have
think he's gonna run again? I hadn't even thought about that. You think he's gonna run again?
Trump.
Of course, he's gonna run.
Yes,
it.
he's gonna run again. If he's alive,
Oh
he's
my
gonna run
gosh.
again. If he hadn't
I
died of a heart
hadn't
attack,
even considered it. Like, I hadn't even. But wow.
he's
Okay.
been,
Run
he's been
again.
vocal about it. He's running again. So
Oh, because he
Unless,
won this
unless-
election, though, right? It was
unless
taken. He won
a
this one. He was
certain
cheated.
an entity that can take him back below, so that John McCain can throw hands with him. I'm begging.
if you want my own personal opinion, I don't think he's making it 2024, but that's especially if SDNY hems him up. But anyway, all right. Anyway, moving forward,
He has had COVID, and that
I-
has long-term effects. He's old.
D don't want the FBI calling us.
That's
She don't want
right.
the FBI calling us. She wants to move forward.
Call COVID, FBI.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up here today. We're gonna wrap it up right there.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Good place to leave.
Let's leave on a good note. Good note though.
let's-
Like,
let's leave on a good
what's a good non-political thing that happened to you this year? Let's leave on a good note.
All
I
right,
got a
D.
promotion. Oh, sorry, I go first. I'm
Oh,
drunk.
no. Go ahead, Courtney.
I got a promotion. So, yeah.
We made it, y'all. Like, if nothing else, we're here. We made
D
it.
doesn't have to deal with bullshit anymore. That's D's best friend.
Right, that's right.
Thank God. I
D
had
looks at peace. D's the only one that's truly at peace.
really. But yeah, we made it, and we are going to be okay. I know that I can't speak for everybody. I know I'm in a situation that's different than other people, but whatever you can do to find some part of happiness or some piece of happiness, even for an hour of a day, even if you get your $600 blow it, my G. I know it's irresponsible, but do it anyway.
Blow it.
It's gonna be all right. Just blow it.
You deserve it.
$600.
Don't pay them.
And I know you
Don't
might need.
pay those student loans. Don't pay them. Just
Right.
just
Listen, don't now. If you need medicine or formula or diapers, that's different. But
Or
if
rent.
you got student loans or
wait till we bully
Credit
Joe
card
Biden
bills.
into forgiveness. We will bully Joe Biden into forgiveness. I'm manifesting it. I'm manifesting it. Thank
Ronald?
you, Melanie.
but be okay and be happy and find it and we're gonna figure it out, man. We're
And
gonna be
what
all
we're
right.
gonna do, I want everyone to do. I'm gonna bully everyone into getting a therapist because if you can have one, I firmly believe in therapy. So please, if anything that has shown you this year, there's a lot of therapists going on. If your insurance covers it, if you can afford it. It's 2020. We're not shaming anyone for going to therapy. You do not have to have a mental illness. Everyone is going through shit this year. I strongly encourage you to get a therapist. It will be life-changing for you, please. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a social worker. I'm partially saying that because I'm a social worker, but I really think if anything, no one is too prideful. No one is too good for a therapist. Please get one.
Ronald?
Yep.
So my good thing that happened this year is actually going to put everyone on this stream. It's actually not what you think it is because they're like
We're
No,
still-
I know.
they're like a few good things, but it's actually going to put everyone
Oh,
on
that's
the stream on the spot. No. It's because
We're just
jeez, but no,
You
it's,
had some good stuff happen, man. You did.
I had
Yeah.
good stuff happen, but
right?
this is no, but really, this is something that I want to share with everyone on this stream. If the people that do know me personally, like they know I'm very introverted and very calculated. I don't take risk. But seeing how this blog has grown over the year is because you people have basically like pushed me into dreaming big. So seeing what we did this year, that I can't even put it into words. Like we had a sitting U.S. senator on this show simply because of the work that everyone on this stream did right now. So that's the good thing that happened this year. Like we made major strides. And when I created this blog, I never saw it going to this distance. So I'm like super proud of everybody on this stream. Thank you for the good work. And if you're watching, just know that we put a lot of work into this. So that's the good thing that happened this year. Like we've had crazy support. We've also done like a lot of work behind the scenes. So that's the good thing that I like to share about this year.
So I've had a couple things happen this year too.
Couple.
Some of which I'll share with y'all off air. But the big thing, of course, is my third child was born. So shout out to Sophia May, my lovely
Cute
baby
little
girl,
baby. Cute little baby.
who's 5 months as of yesterday. Got another kid.
I need the vaccine so because that's one child I haven't held yet. I need to give attention to that baby.
So soon as Pfizer gets that over here, we get that. Courtney, we're gonna go by Courtney so she can cook for us too. But
as long as I can hold the kids, I'm good.
You can hold the kids. You hold them as long as you want to, as long as you make whatever the hell you want to make. As long as it's not seafood, I can't eat that. But on top of that, this year I got my master's finally. Finally found my vision. So we're on the way to a potential doctorate. We'll see how it all works out.
Dr. Ryan McLaughlin.
Oh yes, everybody will call me Dr. McLaughlin. I want that to be.
He's gonna put it in his Twitter name. He's gonna
my
put it
Twitter
in
name will be Dr.
stream.
McLaughlin. Like
You should.
I'm gonna make that point. And anytime somebody tries to argue with me about shit, I'm just gonna be
I'm
like,
like, well, I have a doctorate.
So I have published research now. So anytime people argue with me about higher ed and cost
Which
and
they
whatnot,
still do. Which they
what
still
they do, and I just be like, okay, go refer to the pinned tweet on my page. But anyway, so yeah, those are the two great things that happen. I mean, a lot of good stuff happened. Bought another house. So you know, in the midst of all of this crap, it's you know, I've been grateful that we've been okay. That at the end of every month I can, or at the beginning of every month I can pay my mortgage, I can pay my bills. May not be much left after that, but I can do that, and that's what matters. So And I like Ron. I do want to thank everybody for their support this year. We've done a lot, man. Like the last 3 years, we have done a lot. And I just want to thank everybody who's been part of that journey. I want to thank both Courtneys because we started Don't Call This a Podcast with the other Courtney in tow as well. So like this was a whole thing of we were doing cartoons and shit.
Yeah,
And
we went from cartoons to talking to senators.
That's right, Melanie. Have you Googled me? Okay. I'm about
Exactly.
4 years away from being able to drop
Melanie, we need that on a shirt, honestly. Someone
Yes.
put that on the screen for a shirt.
I'm gonna give you a 2-week turnaround, Melanie. I'm gonna get that on a shirt. But yes, okay. So I want to point out there's a couple things that we've been doing. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, on last week's episode, as well as Politics as Usual, have done their year-end recaps. But we are in the progress of making a catch-all podcast feed. And what I mean by that is we're gonna make a master feed where, say, you've been listening to Politics as Usual and you kind of want to sample some of the other stuff that we do, but you're not really quite sure if you want to subscribe to that podcast alone yet. You can subscribe to our master podcast feed when it becomes available. Hopefully next week, I'll have it fixed. And then you can just check out everything that's on there. The other cool thing about that is we'll be doing some one-off stuff, right? Or some mini series that may just appear on that master feed because it may be sort of a limited run. It may be a one-off thing, whatever the case may be. So there'll be all kind of surprises on there. We're talking about doing a short story podcast, which is literally like 8 minutes long, and just have people tell hilarious stories of things that happened to them. Shout out to Wag, because we're trying to get him to tell his checker story on air. But all the little things, man, we're trying to just do little things that people can enjoy, little things for outreach. So we appreciate all the time and energy that y'all put into this. The Doug Jones podcast put in so many numbers when we went live. Everybody from Dana Barrett to Rebecca Mitchell to Tim Ragland to is Sophie Regal? Soph Regal?
Soph Ruben Siegel.
Soph Ruben Siegel. Okay, I butchered her
Yeah,
name.
John Hammondtree. Too many to name, man.
Everybody that has ever appeared, we thank you. So we out on that note.
Also, I want to thank the podcast moms, especially my mom and Ron's mom, who are carrying the commentary sometimes, and who are now forming their own little group. The moms at this point.
Yes.
What did we do?
Don't call us a
Thank you to the moms of the podcast who watch and like loyally, like every single thing, because our moms even watch the show podcast that they haven't even seen the shows on, and that's true dedication.
Mm-hmm. All right, y'all. We'll catch y'all. We'll turn around. We'll do an episode when the runoffs happen, and then we will catch y'all. We'll kind of announce what we're doing from there. So, peace out, y'all.
Big things. Merry Christmas. Happy holiday.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy New Year.